cooking from scratch is not really popular like it used to be, and I pondered really on and off why so many people don't really like to cook their food at home. We really have lost track of knowing where our food comes from. We have no idea how food is grown anymore. And you know, when we don't know where our food comes from, that's a major problem. And when we don't know where our food comes from, we don't understand why we have so many health problems like we do. Big food industry, which is a food crisis in itself, and our health crisis really go hand in hand. And there really is no denying that. Now, another one of the main links I would say is where our food comes from. So there is a specific agriculture that is very much made to function to produce a certain kind of food. So let me give you an example of what I mean by that. So McDonald's, anywhere you go across this world, is going to have the same kind of French fry. They're all without any type of blemish, right? Long, beautiful, fried up French fries. How do they get those is the next question. So let's look at the agriculture side of where the potatoes come from. Now, a lot of these style potatoes that the food industry want to buy have no blemishes. So if aphids get in their potatoes, the agriculture part of it can't sell the potatoes to these food industries. So what does the agriculture business do? Well, they use this chemical pesticide called Monitor, which is specifically targets aphids. We're talking about potatoes. And this chemical is extremely toxic. It is actually so toxic that when the farmers spray the potatoes, they cannot go outside into their fields for 5 days. Even after the potatoes are harvested, they have to go into a special holding facility for 6 weeks. 6 weeks, so that those potatoes can off-gas all the chemicals that are on them. That's when they have declared them edible and safe to eat. So I kind of hope that that example showed you how a certain type of agriculture is needed for a certain type of French fry in the food industry, how they kind of go hand in hand there. Mr. Poland is a gentleman that I have been really doing some studying behind, some research behind, and I want to read y'all a summarized quote of what he says in one of his presentations. What matters most about a person's health is not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, or even the calorie count, but what predicts a healthy diet was whether the person was cooking the food or not. And it all ties down to corporations cook so much differently than you and I. Not only do they cook differently, they use different ingredients, and that's what I want to get into next. Why these food industries are using what they're doing and how that affects us. So salts, fats, sugars are in incredibly high amounts in the fast food industry, and that is for multiple reasons. One, it helps keep the food attractive. It's cheap ingredients, so it's cost effective, easier on the bank accounts for the consumers, and it is highly addictive. Well, all of that plays very well for them. It's very beneficial for them. There's been a study released that shows that poor women that cook at home, and most do for various reasons, are actually healthier than rich women that eat out a lot, that have more processed food in their diets. And that just goes to show you in itself that cooking at home matters, and who is cooking your food matters. I also found this pretty interesting. The rate of cooking has also decreased by 50% just since the 60s. But I want to bring it up because there's a lot of important points in knowing the history behind what really happened from World War II to the 60s and why really the rates of cooking at home has decreased. We've really been brainwashed into being told that cooking is this horrid chore. And why? They want you to think that you're too busy, you're too important, or that you don't have the skills to cook. But why? Why brainwash us into thinking that cooking is such a bad thing? Why is it so commercialized? Well, it's to the advantage of the industry. It's really a convenience for us. Really, isn't that what marketing is all about? Isn't that kind of how it works? So they give you this problem, they showcase this problem. I'm too busy, I'm too important, maybe I don't possess the skills that I can cook. So essentially they're creating an anxiety with all of those thoughts going through your head. I don't have the time to cook. But then they offer you a solution. Food fixes everything. Home cooking was literally deliberately dismantled by the industry, and our government had a little bit to do with it as well, more now than it did. Closer to World War II, when our government and these food industries began learning how to take foods and process them so that they lasted longer for our troops. Once the war was over, they come up with this very creative marketing scheme to have food that lasted longer with less effort. And a lot of that was really rejected until the 60s. When the 60s came and there was this big push for women liberation, women really began more so than ever in history to begin working outside of the home. That's really when they found their niche in marketing. The idea of fast food and readily available foods really exploded during that time. And they did it a very creative way. I'll give you an example from KFC. In the 60s, they had an ad that I come across, and they were really targeting women's liberation movement. And the ad read something like this: Wife Savers. And it had a picture of the owner holding a big bucket of fried chicken. And in the ad, it talked about how KFC was going to provide the Sunday meals so that the wife didn't have to cook. As a busy mom and wife, that sounds pretty advertising. And over the years, their marketing techniques have begun to get more and more clever. And we've even seen readily made whole meals. But we need to talk about the ingredients that are in those type foods. Fast food, but also things that you're bringing into your home. Like I have already mentioned the astronomical amount of salts, fats, and sugars that are in the food. But let's talk about the dyes, the artificial flavorings, and the chemicals that are in the food to preserve them, to make them appear like they were just cooked. Because who wants to buy food and it looks old? Nobody would buy it. So now they have discovered ways to put these chemicals into our food to preserve them so well that they look like they were just cooked. But there are some serious problems with that. There are some really big concerns about those chemicals, the artificial flavorings, and the dyes. There's some major health concerns that are specifically linked to all of those things. Here's a thought to ponder. Maybe not fully cooking from scratch is good for you, but if you can cook more in your home, it may just save your life, your family's life, and not only save it, it will definitely change it. If you're dealing with health problems and diagnoses, I have said before, and I'm a firm believer, that the food industry and the health industry go hand in hand. FDA, Food and Drug Administration, the name didn't go together unintentionally, and I definitely have to believe that. But I think it's wise of us to do our own research, cook at home as much as you can. If you have to eat out, find somewhere that cooks the food, fresh food if possible, cooks the food, where you're not eating food that is full of preservatives. The fast food industry is not our friend. We cook differently and we use different ingredients. So that's why I'm challenging y'all to cook in your home, because it could save your life. It will definitely change your life. And really, I feel like that's the key to all of it. Happy homesteading, y'all.